Hello, my name is Amelia Nagoski, and today I'm going to be talking about the thing I get asked second most, but I'm going to give you an answer I don't give anyone else. Every other resource you're going to see on burnout is about two things that you can do as an individual to feel better. Or lately, thank goodness, a main part of the conversation has become the way that social pressures conspire to push us into burnout. The unfortunate thing about those resources is that they end with capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy, therefore, good luck. I am not here for that. I'm here for solutions. So yes, all of that is true. Capitalism and white supremacy, heteronormativity and patriarchy, those are all things that are here to push you into burnout, but there are solutions. There's science that says so. When we get to talking about chapter 4, people usually ask me about the power dynamic that underlies the systems of oppression that cause us to burn out. The answer I usually give people is about human giver syndrome, and I will make a video about that. But for you, I'm going to talk about learned helplessness. This is how we begin chapter 4. The science starts with an experiment on puppies, and I promise there's a happy ending, so don't worry about the puppies. Just imagine yourself just a happy-go-lucky puppy, and you're in this little box, this like crate that they use for like crate training. Imagine it like that. And it's wired up because it's in a lab, and you're there to help humanity. One day, when you are there in your crate, the floor goes bzz. Just this little electric zap that surprises you. It doesn't hurt you, you're fine, but it startles you and you run out of your cage. It's a big sliding door and you just rush out of it. And that startle response leads you to escape, fight or flight, and you flee and you escape. Yay! Happy puppy, everyone's fine. But let's say that you don't have that big open door. Let's say that the door is shut and bzz, little startling surprise, you're not injured, you're just a little freaked out, and you want to escape, you want to run away, and you look around and there's no way out. You run around for a little while, your body tries fight and flight, and nothing works. Let's say this happens again and again, day after day. If it were you or me, conscious and aware and intellectual in that cage, we would rationalize our way to understanding. We'd start to be like, okay, this isn't actually hurting me, it's just uncomfortable, so I'll just wait it out and it'll be fine. But deep underneath our intellectual, rational human selves, there's still that evolutionary puppy. Our nervous system is still the puppy. Our nervous system is still freaking out every time it happens and trying to escape, even though we are going, I'm not hurt, it's safe, and I'm fine. I don't like that that door is closed, and I really wish I could escape, but I know I'm gonna be fine. Rational us. Rational us is not talking to our nervous system puppy. The nervous system that is a puppy is still freaking out. So what happens one day when the door is open? And the puppy gets, bzz, oh, I don't like that, I'm uncomfortable. But it has learned that flight doesn't help, there's nothing fight can do. Now, it's not that they're thinking, I see that the door is open, but it doesn't matter. They're not rational, intelligent beings. They're puppies. They're sweet and cute. And what you're teaching is not their conscious, rational mind. You're teaching their nervous system. And what you have taught the nervous system through repetition is that fight and flight don't work. Now, is the puppy still having a fight and flight response? Yes. The puppy's nervous system has learned that it can't. And I don't mean it says to itself, I'm not going to do it. I understand that there's a rational no. The nervous system itself has learned that it cannot, that can is no, that being able to can is not, there's no can. It's not that it can't try, it's that it can't try to try. Yoda didn't know about learned helplessness, but this is learned helplessness. The nervous system has no can. Now this is sad, because now we're picturing a little puppy curled up in the corner of a crate going, I can't do anything. I'm just laying here in the corner and I'm a puppy. The good news is that they can reverse learned helplessness. And how that happens is they physically move its body through the door and say, hey, you can get out. And you're not teaching a puppy into, oh, I have that information and now I will apply it. No, no, no. Puppies learn deep in their nervous system. Look, you can go through this gate. You can escape. You can get out. Remember Pavlov's dogs? Like, They didn't learn to drool because they were like, oh, I hear a bell and now food is coming, therefore I will produce saliva. No, this is stuff that happens way below the level of conscious awareness. The same way that deep, deep subconscious learning happens, so these puppies have been conditioned not just to have a physiological response, but there to be behavior, a large-scale behavior that changes, and we can change it back. Now I want you to picture a puppy going, I've escaped before. I got out. I've been out. And can I? And like pawing its way over. Can I get out? Puppy? And then it peeks its head through and it's like, oh, I think I'm out. Am I out? And then yes, it's out of the crate and everything's so nice. And it's a big happy ending. What does this mean for human beings? One of Martin Seligman's graduate assistants ran an experiment on humans where they bring the humans in. They're like, okay, you're in a psych experiment, that's happening. And what we want you to do, we're going to play a loud sound. And we want you to figure out this puzzle of like how to turn off the sound with all these knobs and dials and controls. How do you turn off the sound? But secretly, it's not about learning to turn off the sound. Secretly, those controls and knobs and buttons and stuff don't do anything. They want to know, how long does it take for somebody just to give up? What happens when they can't control this unpleasant stimulus? What would you do? You're trying and trying to stop this sound. It's really irritating and you want to turn it off and you're trying and trying and trying. And eventually you just sit down and give up. Not only intellectually have you reached the conclusion that, oh, there's nothing I can do here. I may as well wait patiently for it to be over. No. Deep down, when something like this happens, your nervous system learns to respond differently to the stimulus. Now I'm going to get back to the monitor from chapter 2. The monitor is the neurological system that keeps track of your goals, how much effort you're making towards that goal, and how much progress you're accomplishing. And it has very strong opinions about how much effort and how much progress should equal what kind of achievement. And that moment when the person who's in the research situation gives up has usually gone through the whole cycle of calmly trying to solve it and then like getting really irritated or disgusted with the psychologist or afraid that something bad's going to happen because this sound is so and then eventually it turns into furious rage and then they give up and they get dumped into that pit of despair, that place where they oscillate on the point between frustrated rage and helpless despair. The foop, remember we were talking about the foop, is a response that's happening deep down in your nervous system. And when you're in that pit, it feels like nothing's going to get you out, right? Maybe you've been pretty deep in that pit, and maybe you felt the sensation of being unable to can. I have. Well, the good news is that, like, incidentally, at the end of this experiment, the researchers saw how deflated, defeated, depressed, despairing the research participants were. And they told them, hey, you know what? That whole experiment, that wasn't really about you learning how to turn the thing off. That was really research into learned helplessness to see how long it would take you to give up. And when the person knows that the game is rigged, it's like a burden just floats up off of them. Oh, it was rigged. There was no way I could have won. I wasn't supposed to win. I didn't fail. I succeeded in being a research participant in this experiment about learned helplessness. And because we are rational people who do have intelligence and can communicate in words and have higher order thinking, that information, that knowledge is enough to let our nervous system know, oh, that's right. This is not a thing we need to learn for the future. We don't have to protect ourselves from this kind of thing. This is a rigged game. Probably the best thing I've seen from autistic people talking about burnout that I haven't seen from any other people who talk about burnout is that autistic people know and recognize that the game is rigged against us, that the neurotypical world built for neurotypical people to succeed in is not for us. I think for people who have a diagnosis and understand that there's a difference between who they are and how the world works and wants them to interact with it, just knowing that the game is rigged is actually neurologically really good for you. Does it solve the problem of that interaction? Not directly, but it does solve the problem of your neurological response to that kind of frustration. You go, the game is rigged. And then you can kind of divest, disinvest, separate the value. You know what I mean? People think, oh, the world is important. I have to do everything the world says and be what the world says. And when you're like over here being autistic, you're like, oh, no, I don't. That moment of, no, I don't, is magic. Look, I've only been diagnosed for like 2 months now. And already the idea of, no, I don't, is healing me. This is where I'm starting to, we talked about the science, now we're relating it to the autistic experience, right? This is how all these videos go. And my experience of knowing all those things that are hard for me, all that frustration I've experienced and given up on, and all the foop I felt about my inability to be neurotypical, the game is rigged. I was never intended. I'm not built. That was never supposed to be me. This, the world, was never for me. It's such a relief to know. And that's that moment of understanding that the game is rigged. That moment when the researcher tells you, hey, just so you know, this was not an experiment about how to succeed at this task. This was to demonstrate how long it takes you to give up. I'm remembering all the times I was the little puppy in the corner, completely out of can. And here, my friends, leads me to the concrete, specific evidence things you can do about this. You know how they say knowing is half the battle? It actually is half the battle. Just understanding that the game is rigged. And the way you play it is going to be not playing by the rules. Because A, they don't tell you what the rules are. B, A and B, whatever. B, real talk, the rules are made up and the points don't matter. C, there's no such thing as winning. When they're like, this is how you win, this is how you succeed, these are the goals you should achieve, that's all just made up by capitalism and white supremacy and misogyny. And like, maybe you like already knew that. Like, I know. But like, remember that scene from Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams tells Will, it's not your fault, and Will's like, I know. And then Robin Williams is like, it's not your fault. And Will's like, I know. Like, he rationally knows. He does rationally know. But deep in his nervous system, in his heart, in his gut, does all of him know? Or is it just the frontal lobe that knows? Does your amygdala know? So the practice here, the evidence-based strategy of a thing you can do to feel better, is to tell your nervous system, tell your actual physical beating heart and all the neurons that surround it, tell your actual digestive system, your intestines and your stomach and the whole shebang down there, hey, the game is rigged, belly. Hey, heart, the game is rigged. And make sure that all of you knows. Find your amygdala, the fight or flight, fear, raw emotion part of you, deep in the evolutionary root of your brain, and be like, hey, amygdala, game's rigged. And when you really know, deep down, way in your peripheral nervous system, and your fingertips know that the game is rigged, it changes not just how you feel rationally, but it changes your neurological response to the world. It sounds like touchy-feely woo-woo, but it's actually science. Isn't it nice to know there's a thing you can do, that you can actually train your physiology to be less reactive and to give fewer fucks? I have a friend who I've known for like 20 years who's seen me like at my worst, deepest, foopiest, darkest, despairingest depression. And she saw me while I was writing the book, and I was learning the science and using it for the first time. And she was like, you seem different. And she used a term that she had heard somewhere else, and I wish I could remember, but she's like, you seem to have the attitude that you just have no fucks to give, that your fuck field is fallow, and the fallow fuck field, like, I have no fucks to give. So I don't like to swear a lot doing this because this is kind of like a professional situation for me, but like the I don't give a fuck is like a professional stance I take now. And this is the grounds in which I say that I think I'm a good example of an autistic person who has recovered from burnout and come out the other side genuinely not afraid that I'm going to burn out again, that this is not going to be an ongoing cycle for me. I feel like I've broken free from the cycle because my fuck field is fallow. And my fuck field is fallow because I've taught my nervous system that the game is rigged and not to bother playing. Is it easy to remember not to give a fuck and that the game is rigged? It is going to take help. Like I say every single video, the cure for burnout is not self-care because it's next to impossible to do this alone. Surround yourself with people who will help remind you that no, you don't have to play the game. Their goals are not valid goals. They just made them up. And that you are worthy of love and care and wellness just as you are. You don't have to work to deserve it. You don't have to conform to deserve it. You, just as you are now, are worthy. And your role in the rigged game has nothing to do with your value. It's pretty easy when you have people who surround you who are like, oh yeah, you don't have to follow those rules. Fuck that. And they can help you do whatever it is you do to a field to make it fallow. How do you make a field fallow? I mean, like in a good way. When you don't want to have a field full of fucks, how do you get rid of the field full of fucks? Is there like a gardening metaphor? I don't know anything about gardening. Harvest your... Kill? No. Poison? No. All of this sounds really bad. But like maybe just turn it over and till the soil to grow something that you want there instead of all the fucks that you're giving about playing the game. Game is rigged. There's no winning. And that's good news because it means you don't have to play. And if you do, you can make up your own rules. So you see what I'm doing here is that I am now becoming part of the bubble of people who are trying to remind you, you don't have to play that game. You don't have to follow their rules. See, I'm doing the thing. You can do it too. How many fucks do you give? I don't give any fucks. I'm wearing a tank top in a professional situation. I don't give any fucks. I'm in a barn. I don't give any fucks. And you don't have to either. Try it out. Talk to the people who care about you as much as you care about them. And try to help remind each other that we don't have to play the game. The game's rigged. We don't have to follow any of those contrived rules. If we take care of each other, then we are winning. Let me know if it helps. And in the meantime, remember who the real enemy is, because the real cure for burnout is not self-care. It is all of us caring for each other.